Last season, the Indiana Pacers had a pretty disappointing season as they missed the playoffs and they finished with the 10th seed in the Eastern Conference. Then they lost to the Wizards in the play-in tournament, and their disappointment was mainly due to injuries. But regardless, it's pretty clear that this Pacers team could use some improvements. That's led me to make this video where I'm discussing certain things I think the Indiana Pacers should do to improve, basically how I would fix the Indiana Pacers. Before we get into the video, I ask you to drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content because I post literally every single day. Also, to help me reach my goal of 1,500 subscribers. Also, drop a comment on this video as it does help my channel out, and I do respond to all of my comments. And play that intro. The first step I would take to make the Indiana Pacers their best is to consider trading Sabonis or Miles Turner. And I know this might sound like an obnoxious take, and you might think I'm a casual and I don't know basketball. Let me explain. The reason I think the Indiana Pacers should at least consider trading one of them is due to the fact that over the past 2 years, the Pacers have been trying to start basically two centers in their front court. And when you look deep into the stats, when both of them are on the court, the team is actually a negative. But when it's just one of them on the court, the team is way better than if there's two of them on the court. And although they're two really good NBA players and they're arguably top 10 players at both of their positions, to win basketball games, you need more than just good names on the paper. And you might be thinking that it's kind of obvious that you should trade Miles Turner since Sabonis was just an all-star this past season. I could definitely understand that point of reasoning. I think I would probably agree with that point of reasoning. But when Sabonis is on the court, the Pacers are actually a negative overall, and that might be impacted by injuries and things like that. I don't know. But on the other side of the spectrum, whenever Miles Turner is on the court and Sabonis isn't, like Miles Turner's just on the court, the Pacers are actually a positive. So I don't know what to think about that, but I do know it's due to the fact that Turner is one of the 10 best defenders in the NBA. He has a crazy impact. He protects the rim at a crazy level, whereas Sabonis is an average at best defender. And although Sabonis is a way better offensive player, you could argue they're just as good on offense without him, because he's a big man who slows down the offense a lot because they have to throw it to him in the post and things like that. And they have a lot of perimeter players who could get buckets and shoot the ball. But regardless, I'm not saying right now at this current moment they should try and trade either of them. But if they're starting off slow in the season and it's kind of obvious that the front court is the problem, then they definitely should look to trade one of those guys. But I do think maybe under a new head coach he could make it work. And in my opinion, I think the guy who should be traded probably is Miles Turner, because although the stats say you should keep Turner, I just don't think you can get rid of a guy like Sabonis, who's arguably a top 5 player at his position. And Turner is a guy who you could get a lot of assets for because he's the perfect modern day big man. And I definitely think there are some teams that would be foolish enough to give up too much assets for him. But nonetheless, this isn't rock solid or anything, but I definitely think they should consider it because I think it would make the team way better. The second step I would take towards making the Indiana Pacers better is to make Levert the second option on this team. And you might have argued that he already would have been the second option, but don't forget Malcolm Brogdon is coming off of a season where he averaged 21 points and 7 assists, so I don't think it's too crazy to think that Karras would be fell down to the third option. But I definitely think Karras should be the second option due to the fact that he's just a more pure scorer than Malcolm is. I think Malcolm should go back to focusing on his old Bucks days where he was crazy efficient, and he should try and be one of the best playmakers in the NBA and just feed Karras and Sabonis the ball. And I definitely think he's a guy in Karras who's a guy who can average 22 to 25 points per game on good efficiency. Nothing that would make this team worse or anything like that, because last year this team's offense wasn't too great, and I think Karras is going to be a breakout star, and to do that he for sure needs to start, no 6-man BS, and I think he needs to be a main option on this team. I think if the Pacers want to succeed in the future, they need to let their star players shoot the ball, and Karras is that, because underratedly this Pacers team is pretty stacked and top heavy, and they have one of the best starting fives in the whole NBA. As their starting five fully healthy would be Malcolm Brogdon, who's an all-star level player, Levert, who I think will become an all-star level player, TJ Warren, who went crazy in the bubble, but even outside of the bubble, he was still an above-average starter in the NBA, nearly averaging 20 points. Sabonis, who's obviously an all-star, and Miles Turner, who's a top 10 or so player at his position and one of the best defenders in the league. So I think Kerr should be shooting the ball arguably more times, like the most on this team, just because I feel like sometimes when Sabonis is posting up, it slows down the offense a bit. But I wouldn't be mad if Sabonis shoots the ball the most because he is their best player. But Kerr should definitely shoot the ball way more than he did last season, and I think it would maximize how good they can be as a team. The third step I would take to make sure the Indiana Pacers are good is to just make sure this team is healthy. And I know you can't control that, but this team just has to stay healthy or else they're not going to be that good, because this is not a really deep team. They rely on their best 5 or 6 players. If they just lose one or two of those guys, this whole team's dynamic is really messed up. And we saw that last year as they had to play a lot of their end of rotation guys significant minutes. And I think if this team is healthy, they could just surprise everyone and finish with like the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. I don't know how good they're going to be in the playoffs without a superstar or top 20 player in the NBA, but that's better than them being the 10th seed or something like that, because there's no way this Indiana Pacers team can tank, because they literally have 4 guys on their team who I think is capable of averaging over 20 points per game. They're simply just not an untalented team. So I think if they're healthy, they can surprise everyone or be a mediocre team and just make the play-in tournament. But nonetheless, they have to be healthy this season. They can't. I don't think them getting the 10th seed next season would be good at all. The fourth step I would make to make sure the Indiana Pacers are good is to just make them shoot more 3-pointers, because last season they ranked 16th in the NBA in 3-pointers attempted per game. I simply think this is a team that should be attempting more 3s than that, because I feel like they have a lot of guys who can shoot 3s at a good level, because they have guys like Malcolm Brogdon, who's an elite shooter, Levert, who's a really good shooter, and I think he's going to improve even more. TJ Warren's a guy who shot over 40% from 3 2 years in a row, and Miles Turner is an above average 3-point shooter for a center. Then they have guys like Justin Holiday, O'Shea Brissett, and others who can space the floor. So I think this is a team that should be attempting more 3s and try to be top 10 in the NBA in 3-pointers attempted. And I think it would make their offense way better, because they're a team that relies a lot on mid-range shots and layups, but I think their offense could be even more efficient if they were to attempt a bit more 3-pointers. So when you look at the teams that attempt the most 3s in the NBA, all of them are just in a better position than the Pacers and ranked higher on offense. So I think they should just shoot more 3s. To conclude the video, I'm not crazy high on the Indiana Pacers. They didn't really do too much this offseason to be crazy excited for them or anything like that. I don't think they're a terrible team, but I do question where their future is heading. Are they just going to be this middle of pack team forever? I don't think they're at the top of the Eastern Conference, and I don't think they're title contenders, but I do think they're a team that can give the top teams in the East a bit of problems. They're not a pushover, and maybe with their new head coach, they could be transformed into an amazing regular season team. I think that's just what they kind of need. I'm not low on Indiana, but I'm not crazy high on them either. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. Let me know whether or not you think the Indiana Pacers are real title contenders. Drop a like on this video, that helps my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content, and if you want to reach my goal of 1,500 subscribers. Also, drop a comment on this video, as I do respond to all of my comments, and I'm out.